Welcome, all you lovers out there, to the Mike Rogers Show. Mike Rogers here with you. And today, I have a really special guest, Mr. David Martinez, and he is the festival producer of Raindance Film Festival. And we had Elliot on the other day, and a lot of people watched it, and a lot of people asked me questions. I asked David to be on the show because here's the guy who actually produces the festival. He knows what's going on. We can ask him and get the inside story. David, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks, Mike. And thank you for the space. Hello, everyone from London.
So, can you tell us, like, what do you do, David? Exactly. You know, what is it that you do?
In life or at work?
Yeah, well, both. Yeah, tell us everything.
Well, in life, I strive to be happy and be surrounded by loving people. And at work, I produce the Raindance Film Festival in London, which means I am a sort of a gatekeeper. I manage the budget, but essentially, like, it's securing all the funding to procure a fantastic festival and then decide how we're going to spend the money. So essentially, if you think about it, like, I am like the mother of the house. Yeah. Together with an amazing team. Obviously, this is a team effort, but it has to be escalated at some point before it reaches Elliot, our founder. So I'm also a filter, like anything, any problem, any issue, anything you want to share, anything that you need in your department, you come to me before we escalate it, basically. So I'm also on the spot. I am the problem solver. That's what I do. And I need to think logistically and peacefully and be able to resolve a problem, always with care of my team, always thinking of the customers, of the filmmakers. So that's essentially my job, being logic and then executing.
Wow, that's great. So what you're basically telling me is, like, you basically run all the nuts and bolts of a world-famous, world-class festival, and you also work with bringing in sponsors and clients to help run that festival. That's what you do?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was very fortunate to meet Elliot, and we can go through the history in a minute. But I was very fortunate to be assigned to this fantastic role and mission, because you don't study. You're not trained in life to produce or to direct an internationally well-known film festival. But once you're on it and you take on the mission, then you get to understand exactly from the inside what it means. For us, it means that we don't get any public funding, meaning that, as we say, we eat what we hunt. And every year is a challenge, but every year a challenge comes with a lot of satisfactions, because it's, yes, knocking doors, yes, convincing people, but from the story, what's the story of Raindance? What do we want to explain to the world? What are we going to showcase? From the story point of view, no? And then it's convincing brands and people that, thankfully, because of the legacy and the brand, it's not as hard to convince people to give us a hand, in exchange of, obviously, a lot of tremendous hospitality that we can offer, and everything comes like threaded with how everyone sees and respects and loves the brand, the festival as a brand. So yeah, that is my job, procuring the funding from private sources, from sponsors, but essentially, like, telling the story, like, from presentations, literally, that's how we pitch. And then, like, trusting and pass it on to the artistic team, to the industry team, to the marketing, to the PRs, and then together, all of us deciding the direction of the festival. What's the mission every year? What do we want to achieve? What do we learn from previous years? and moving forward what we want to do. And this is the big 30th anniversary, so you may imagine that this is a good year for us.
Yeah, it is, right? It's
It
a
is
good year, right? It's a
fantastic.
great year, right?
Yeah, it's a big 3-0. Yeah.
I thought you were going to...
It's the third floor.
You may imagine it's a good year, but it's not. I thought you were going to say
Oh.
that. So wait, so David, you, from a philosophical standpoint, you are kind of like the mom or the dad for the staff, but also from a business standpoint, you're the guy who goes out and gets Toyota or gets Canon cameras and does it. Can you tell me about these two parts of your job, like about your staff? What kind of problems do you have? And I mean, can you give us an example?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, I can tell you like what it is to be on both sides, and that's a really good question. I don't think anyone ever asked me that. Being on both sides is, as you said, like the housekeeper, like the provider of the house in that element, is making sure that we have enough funds for us to exist and execute the festival, basically. So with that, it comes a lot of responsibility, as you may imagine. The responsibility of knowing that if we want a festival, we need to bring the fundings that we need.
Mm-hmm.
Having targets is hard, but it's always great when you meet those targets. Like we need X amount to execute a festival, and until David doesn't get that, we don't have a festival. So from that side of things, of course, it's a lot of responsibility, but I have an amazing festival to work with, and I have an amazing brand, and it's internationally known. So when you have that, and that's what I always explain, like it's not my magic, it's the magic of the brand, and I'm just the channel of the person who needs to sell the story, like who we are. Because you have a live show, you have a fantastic 12-day festival, but how do you create those reports? How do you convince people that we are amazing? Because we all know internally, or we want to think that we're amazing, but how do you actually convince people to tell that story? Mm-hmm. And you see, Mike, I come from a marketing background. I actually studied marketing and advertising before I pursued. Yes, and we can go through that. But
okay.
But having that background helps me to sell it. At the end of the day, a film is a product. Mm-hmm. It could be shoes, it could be a house, it could be a car, it could be toilet paper. But I have an amazing product, which is film, and it's a collective of films, which makes a film festival. So knowing that, like that kind of triggers my marketing mind. And how do we actually sell this amazing product? But it's an amazing responsibility to have, and a big one. Mm-hmm. So that's to answer that first side of the question that you asked me. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so how about the second side of the question? You know, let's say you've got a meeting with, and I know you sold Toyota, and I think you sold Canon, and I don't know who sold it, but you go out to a client like that and you make the presentation. How do you make a presentation? You don't just come in there and say, hey, here's this piece of paper, buy it, give me $5,000 or something like that. How do you do that? What's the most difficult part?
Yes. So I've been doing this. I've been in the company for 10 years, so it's a lot of learning. And as I said, there's no film school or business school that can purely show you how to run a film festival. And every year we live and we learn, right? But essentially, like it used to be, and I don't want to sound cocky or anything, but it used to be nerve-breaking to pitch to like. So our last big sponsors were, so it was actually Lexus and Lumix, the Panasonic cameras.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh,
no, it's all right. I'll send them a bouquet of flowers. No, like it's It used to be nerve-breaking, and it is still, of course. I can't lie. To pitch to like the head of communications of the brand in Europe, like the experiential marketing manager for Lexus UK. Like it is nerve-breaking, as in, who are you guys, and who is this guy who is gonna present what? No. But something I've learned is that you have to pitch the right thing to the right person. If I'm pitching to the one who handles the brand as the dream, I present our brand as the dream. Who are we? We are the underdogs. We have a Cinderella narrative in London. Like, we bring independent filmmakers to the big spaces where Lady Gaga's and the Tom Cruises and the Al Pacinos of this world premiere their own films, right? We bring a lot of domestic tourism. We cater the local art voters and consumers. That's from a brand point of view. But if I'm pitching to the money guys, I present stats, I present demographics, I present like the education level, I present the social economic level of my demographics, because we need to survey our attendees and filmmakers. And that's how their marketing mind operates. As in, just show me the figures and I'll show you the money, basically. And again, thankfully, we have amazing stats to present. That's how we convince people. And together with Elliot, we have like this good dynamic. Sometimes we're the good cop, the bad cop situation. But Elliot, he's the dreamer. I also present ideas, but my job is mainly to execute those ideas. We can present like 10,000 ideas. We can close like Buckingham Palace to do a private party, if you may, as an idea. But how does that mean when you execute it? So yeah, it's like the mediator of those fantastic ideas and dreams, and making sure that we are able to execute them. And if I need help, to be able to source that help. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What you do and what you just explained to me is a very difficult job, and there's not that many people who can do it well. I don't think. There's very few. So that's really amazing. So, okay, let's go back.
Yeah.
David, you're originally from where?
From Mexico City.
Wow, I've been to Mexico before. I love Mexico. I've been to Mexico at least 25 times.
Wow. And you love it, Mike?
Yeah, I lived in Southern California.
Of
so
course.
we used to go to Ensenada.
Yeah.
Once or twice a year. It was wonderful. And
Nice.
even Tijuana. I even thought Tijuana was wonderful.
Okay, wow. Okay, well, thanks. I've never been.
So can you tell us, wait a minute, how did David Martinez, the festival producer at Raindance, how did he get from Mexico to London and now into this cool job? How did that happen?
Well, thanks, Mike. Well, everyone has a story, and every story is fascinating, right? So basically, yes, as you said, I am from Mexico City, born and bred. Until I was 21 years old, I decided to move to Southern California, to UC Santa Barbara, on an exchange program. I got a scholarship to go there for a year.
I'm from Ventura. I know Santa Barbara very well. Very well.
Oh, okay. I remember.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
All right. Okay. I remember, like, what was the radio station that I used to listen? 103.
KCSB? KCSB was the Santa, I think that was the I don't remember. It doesn't matter. Tell us about yourself. So
yeah. So I come from a very loving and supporting family. My mom, my uncle, my grandparents, they both they're all like, they all went to university, and they are numbers people. Both my grandparents were accountants. My mom, she's an economist, and my uncle, he's a nuclear physicist.
Wow.
So I got a lot from what I do from my household. They used to have like an envelope of the money that we were all gonna spend. And in that envelope, you have to note, I went to buy 2 Coca-Colas.
Oh, I
with
see.
The change.
Right.
I went to buy like the petty cash, basically. We had a petty cash at home. And anyone had access, but anyone had to know how you spend it and how much was it. My family were not rich, but they were very well administrated. Once you know how to administrate the money, you can do magics. Like, don't spend it in small things, spend it in one big thing. That was the big lesson from my grandparents. And the one thing is like, don't go out every weekend. Go on holidays once a month. Or don't go to Acapulco or to that near beach that everyone goes to. Go to Europe once a year. As in this kind of like thinking. They were never on credit. Everything was like, and again, my family are not rich, are just well administrated. But it happened that from my grandma's side, they used to own cinemas in Mexico.
Really?
As a business, yes. From that side of the family, they used to run 5 cinemas in Mexico City. They used to own. They had the first license to have. Remember back in the days, there used to be a TV guide.
Yeah.
So they in every country they had the license to run the TV guide in Mexico. So they were the founders of the TV guide. Which then transformed into like an entertainment/gossip magazine. So when I was of a certain age and I was deciding what to do with my life, I was also like a proud person. I'm a Leo. So I was never striving to ask for a family favor, or I was never going into that direction. But anyway, like my close family's role was to be the accountants of that family business. So for me, it was just like, let's go see your nan at her workplace, which happened to be in one of the big cinemas in Mexico City. So we used to go through the back entrance and go to the main offices upstairs where the popcorn machines were. So for me, that was when I was up until 7 years old. And that's my infancy, that's my golden years. To me, going to the cinema, to me, the smell of popcorn is reminds me to my grandma, because it reminds me to her office, and it was so many beautiful memories. I used to have, obviously, in my birthday parties, bags and bags of popcorn and sandwiches and all the candies. I used to the cinema used to cater my birthday parties. But I was growing up just thinking that's my grandma's job, and what do you do in film and how do you get into it? All we hear from when we are kids is like, you see all these Hollywood actors and you see it as a dream, but you never see it as a business, and never see like part of the business is the distribution, the showcasing, the exhibition. You don't see that as part of the business. So I never quite understood what role could I perform if I ever wanted to decide to work in film. But I knew that I wanted to work in the arts. So I decided initially I wanted to be a journalist, a cultural journalist, nothing to do with the gossip magazine from my family, because that was so uninteresting to me. But I knew that I was going into that direction. And then I discovered at university, advertising. I was like, oh, wait a minute, I can study and have fun. And advertising is so fascinating. Is the theory of color and the theory of fonts, even the psychology behind advertising. How do you create needs to people for them to consume? As in, do they need a pink colored toilet paper? No, toilet paper is toilet paper. But how do you make it like that's the next toilet paper that they need in their household if they want their visitors and their friends to know that? So it's very obscure. Advertising is very obscure, but it's so obscure that once I finished advertising my bachelor's degree, I was like, it's fascinating. I don't want to be in advertising. It's so sick. It's really sick when you understand how those moments they create us needs.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I
So
think
that,
coffee is coffee, but Starbucks, it's gonna be like very expensive. But you want a Starbucks in your hand if you want to be like Paris Hilton or Britney Spears walking around LA. That's the aspirational brand for you. So it's very sick when you think like normally people who work in these, they don't buy those big brands because you know that you don't need them.
oh, I see. So you went to school at UCSB, and then, you know, I mean, London's not very close to there. So how did you wind up getting to London?
Yeah. So I went to Southern California to change my life. Basically, I was 21. Obviously, there was a lot of party, but at the same time, it's the perfect age to discover like what exactly does David wants and needs in life, personally and professionally. So I was lucky enough to be invited to go to the film and media department to see what courses were of my interest, because again that was still, I was getting, my subjects were like advertising and communications, but then when I discovered the film and media department, which was sponsored by the Douglas family, Michael Douglas and Kirk Douglas, they have a fantastic film department. So I remember I took two subjects that completely changed my life. One was the Hollywood industry, and the other one was American independent cinema. And my teacher, Alison Anders, she's an American filmmaker back in the 90s. She was the feminist filmmaker in the 90s in the American independent cinema. She dated Tarantino. She made a film together with Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez called Four Rooms with Antonio Banderas and Madonna. She directed Madonna, produced by the Weinsteins, which now is wrong to talk about them, so let's not go there. Actually, she had a terrible she told me all the terrible experiences like the industry knew. Yeah. So that was fascinating. You can imagine that when you hear all these fantastic stories from a voice that was part of that history in the 90s, and when you look at these films at cinema or on TV or on your VHS or on your Blu-rays, however our age is, but you never understand or you never stop and think what was the repercussion of that film in the industry, politically, culturally, economically. What was the repercussion, or for bad or for good? Like we don't, but that became my approach. Like, oh my God, that's fascinating. That film was so fascinating that when a film becomes such a cultural phenomenon, it doesn't belong to the filmmaker anymore. It belongs to the people. It belongs to history. You know, it's like, thank you for an amazing film. Now scholars are going to study it. Now people are going to interpret it in their own ways. Now maybe the parliament can take it to change a rule, like a trans representation or whatever it is, like those beautiful messages that sometimes the filmmakers, they don't stop to analyze, but then that was my approach, the social and economical approach of film. So I did my dissertation on American independent cinema, but specifically on how pulp fiction as a cultural and economic phenomenon was the start of the ending for that wave of American independent cinema in the 90s.
Oh.
Which it is, and it's fascinating. It's a fascinating story that I had no idea until I went to that class, and then I was like, tell me more. And I went to the library and I pulled out so many books I bought so many amazing books that are still in my archive. They're at Raindance if anyone wants to borrow. About that economical aspect of the industry, and also independent cinema as an industry, because it is an industry. Came an industry in the 90s when all the big studios decided to do their art house studios, to do the indie films, catering this demographic. So suddenly indie film cinema became like trendy and cool. Whereas back in the days, independent cinema was trying to copy the European waves, the French waves, the German waves, in a more scholar and more profound and philosophical way. But then the cool kids in the 90s came to change the game as we know it, and then it came like the guns and the blood and the women and the bikinis and the cool rockabilly music, and that became independent cinema since then. So once I understood that, I was like, that's where I want to work.
So then what did you do? You're telling me you just walked into Raindance one day, knock, hey, I'm here, let me talk to my boss? That was...
No. So what happened was that after that amazing life experience, because it was a life experience in totality, and it was a eye-opening in terms of, wow, okay, went back to Mexico, did my entire dissertation. It was like, oh my gosh, like, you know, these university dissertations, and in Mexico they take it very seriously. You have to do a book to graduate.
Much like more seriously than Americans do.
And to be fair, yes.
I know.
And more serious than in the UK. You had to publish a book, and my book was like 200 pages. I still have it in Mexico. So I did that, and then I was like, wow, I mean, yes, I want more. I want to travel more. I want to discover more parts of the world. I had the privilege of knowing friends from all over the world once when I was in California, from all over the world. One of them, and that's another story, but one of them ended up winning the Golden Bear at Berlinale Film Festival this year.
Wow!
We started together in these classes that I just mentioned, and she's the biggest star filmmaker in Catalonia. She's a Catalan filmmaker. But anyway, like, I met fantastic people, and that's the beauty of going to international schools in general. Because you never know, you're gonna end up working with them, or you're gonna cross paths with them. But I wanted more, so having my second language is English. I learned it in Mexico. We have, you see, Mike, we have this mentality that only when you learn English you can travel and conquer the world if you want to work internationally.
Because it's the same in Japan.
They see you that you want to be international, you have to learn English.
Yep.
Which it could be kind of like an imperialistic approach, but on the other hand, yeah, that's how the world and economics operate, right? So having English as a second language, I was like, well, I've done US, got the t-shirts, great, love them. But let's discover something else. I love them. I love my American friends, and I have my sister lives in the US actually. But I wanted more, so I was like, England. Let's go to England. Let's go to the roots of the language. Let's go to, obviously, and that was my second dissertation, but we can talk about that if you want. It was we know England through fantasy. When you think about it, the first approach that we have is Peter Pan,
right?
Is Alice in Wonderland, is Harry Potter, is The Lord of the Rings, is Sherlock Holmes, is Agatha Christie, is like all of these, like that's what we know about England. So I was like, I was growing up with Harry Potter, and I was like, oh my gosh, yes, let's go to those universities and let's see how it is. So I came to England, and I got offered a scholarship in the Midlands in Leicester University. And it was a fascinating experience because it was also a very fascinating multicultural city. Then I discovered another kind of cultures, like the Indian culture, the Pakistani culture, like cultures that were not so much represented in California, no? Because in California it's all full of Latinos and the sporadic Asians and Europeans, right? But you don't have those fascinating groups as represented as they. So I came, and then I did my master's degree. I did my dissertation on now it was Harry Potter as a cultural and economic phenomenon. And my fascination was like how Hollywood and British culture merge, or how Americans are imposing culture in Britain.
Oh.
So it was Harry Potter, but more like these fancy titles, American representations of the Britishness, and the struggle of calling Harry Potter an American film when essentially it's culturally British, but the money came from the US. So where is it from? The short answer, you don't have to read my dissertation, is a global cinema, is a global film. It's impossible to categorize films nowadays, or these kind of films, the transatlantic films. It's unfair to treat it as purely American or purely British. It's global. Film, guys, girls, is global. So when I finished my dissertation there, I started working in the city, and it's actually a funny story if we have the time. It's I'm gonna make it short. Basically, I used to work in a tiles company in the customer service department, and yeah, my family said, you are becoming very expensive. If you want to stay, you need to get a job,
right,
or come back to Mexico. Your room is there, So I decided to stay and see how it goes. And then I got a job. I was 23, turning 24 at that time. And I was like, yeah, I'm an adult. I'm going to get a whatever job. And I got a job at customer service. And I was fine. I was paying my bills and everything. But it was in a tiles company, like construction company. Thankfully, like after a year and a half of working in that company, and I had the best time, like, don't get me wrong, but the CEO, the owner of that company, came to me one day at lunchtime. We were having lunch in the canteen of the headquarters in the city, and he just like fascinated, like, what's your name and where are you from? Just like same as you would ask the same questions to anyone that you just met. I was like, well, I'm David from Mexico, and what is a Mexican doing in Leicester? Because Leicester is in the Midlands and it's not one of those obvious cities to visit, right? And then I was like, well, I came to study. What do you study? Film studies. He was like, well, I appreciate that educated people work in my company, but what are you doing here? And I was like, to be fair, I'm paying my bills. I'm paying my bills, Matt. That's what I said. I was like, I mean, from man to man, no disrespect. I'm paying my bills. I know this is not my life, but I had to prove a point to my family, and I need to prove a point to myself, and I need to earn my money and pay my rent. But do you have a plan? And I was like, yes. Basically, when my family came, they didn't judge me, but they were like, whatever you do, think, where is it gonna take you to? And that phrase really resonated and changed my life. I was like, do I want to be the manager of this tiles company, or do I want to pursue that dream and career that I've been spending time and money on?
That's really fascinating. So David, I'd like to hold you there. This is the end of part 1. We're going to part 2, and
Perfect.
I need you on there because I need to hear the end of this story. I need to hear it. So anyway,
Of course.
ladies and gentlemen, this is the Mike Rogers Show. If you like this content, subscribe and click like button. And tomorrow we're going to have Mr. David Martinez, the festival producer of the world famous Raindance Film Festival, on the show again, and he's going to tell us, he's got such fascinating stories. So David, thanks so much. I'll see you back here tomorrow.
Perfect. See you guys.